From the PEP Radio Newsroom, this is a news blast for our YouTube viewers. LGBTQ Nation is reporting that a bipartisan group of senators has reintroduced the Kids Online Safety Act, or KOSA, a bill that died in the House last year amid concerns that it could be used to censor LGBTQ plus content online. The newly reintroduced KOSA has reportedly made changes to mitigate those concerns, but some queer advocacy groups and even some Republicans continue to oppose the bill over free speech concerns. KOSA places requirements on tech platforms not to recommend content that could promote the development of mental health disorders like eating disorders, drug use, self-harm, sexual abuse, and bullying, unless minors specifically search for such content. The new version of KOSA reportedly has revised its controversial duty of care provision so that it no longer allows attorneys general to conduct investigations, issue subpoenas, require documentation from, and file civil lawsuits against any platforms that have threatened or adversely affected minors' well-being, according to The Verge. LGBTQ plus advocates worried that the provision would allow Republican attorneys general to prosecute platforms that provide access to LGBTQ plus content, especially since many Republicans consider LGBTQ plus identities as harmful forms of mental illness. KOSA would not censor, limit, or remove any content from the internet, and it does not give the Federal Trade Commission or state attorneys general the power to bring lawsuits over content or speech, wrote anti-LGBTQ plus Senator Marsha Blackburn, a Republican from Tennessee. She said so in a statement. Blackburn is one of the bill's biggest proponents, alongside Senator Richard Blumenthal, the Democrat from Connecticut, Senate Majority Leader John Thune from South Dakota, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Blackburn had previously been accused of saying that one of the bill's top priorities is to protect children from, quote, the transgender in this culture. Blackburn's office told LGBTQ Nation that her comment had been taken out of context and wasn't related to KOSA, stating KOSA will not, nor was it designed to, target or censor any individual or community. Nevertheless, the conservative think tank Heritage Foundation, you remember the folks from Project 2025? Yeah, those folks, the blueprint for Donald Trump's second term. Well, they've also said it wishes to use the law to, quote, guard kids against the harms of transgender content. Though the bill passed the Senate last year in a 91-3 vote, it perished in the House after Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson refused to put it to a vote. At the time, Johnson said he loves the principles, but the details of that are very problematic, adding that he looked forward to working with the Trump administration to get the right bill into law. KOSA is supported by groups like Common Sense Media, Fair Play, Design It For Us, Accountable Tech, Eating Disorders Coalition, the American Psychological Association, and the American Academy of Pediatrics. However, many other groups have nonetheless opposed the bill, including the American Civil Liberties Union, the Woodhull Freedom Foundation, the LGBT Technology Partnership, as well as LGBTQ plus advocacy organizations in 6 states. Laura Marquez Garrett, an attorney with the Social Media Victims Law Center, told the LGBTQ Nation last year that the bill was revised with input from queer advocates and reintroduced with amendments meant to account for those concerns. She pointed out that the 2024 version of KOSA contained a carve-out to allow minors to access any sort of content that they search for, including LGBTQ plus content. She also noted that KOSA also explicitly excludes many websites from its control, including government platforms, libraries, and nonprofits. That means if a minor finds pro-LGBTQ plus content on the websites of the ACLU, the Trevor Project, or the Human Rights Campaign, an attorney general cannot prosecute. However, Evan Greer, director of Fight for the Future, a nonprofit that protects human rights in the digital age, opposed the 2024 version of KOSA, and still opposes the new version. Fight for the Future and the ACLU have said that the government cannot force platforms to suppress entire categories of content or to suppress all content that might lead to a minor becoming depressed or anxious without violating the First Amendment. It's always been a dangerous censorship bill, Greer wrote in a Blue Sky post on Wednesday. But in this environment, with Trump weaponizing every aspect of the federal government to suppress speech he doesn't like, KOSA is a catastrophic attack on human rights. We have to stop it. When Greer spoke to LGBTQ Nation last year, she worried that social media companies that are legally liable for content will over-remove content to avoid getting sued. It's sickening to see organizations that claim to care about progressive values supporting this bill that would fail to hold big tech accountable while handing Trump enormous power to censor any piece of content he is willing to lie and claim harms kids, Greer added. So what else would KOSA do? KOSA also requires platforms to limit features that result in compulsive usage, like autoplay and infinite scroll, or features that allow adults to contact young users or track their location. The bill says platforms must provide parents with easy-to-use tools to safeguard their child's social media settings and notify parents if their kids are exposed to potentially hazardous materials or interactions. Furthermore, KOSA requires platforms to submit annual reports to the federal government containing details about their non-adult users, the internal steps they've taken to protect minors from online harms, the concern reports they've issued to parents whenever their child encounters any harmful content, as well as descriptions of interventions they've taken to mitigate harms to minors. These reports will be overseen by an independent third-party auditor who consults with parents, researchers, and youth experts to suggest additional methods and best practices for safeguarding minors' well-being online. That's our news blast. If you've not already subscribed to our channel, click the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with the latest news impacting the LGBTQ+ community. Thanks for watching.